It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the 6 movies of September 14th, 2007. I get it, six movies. But anyway, we have a wide assortment for this particular week. We have our second Death Wish-based movie in about not even a month, 3 weeks. I mean, we've had Death Sentence with Kevin Bacon, and now we have this first film I'm going to delve into in just a little bit. But Billy Bob Thornton and Sean William Scott starring a new comedy. We got a Japanese import, I guess, but they threw in character actors from comedies that you may or may not be familiar with. We have probably one of the most underrated musicals ever made, and we also have the latest film from David Cronenberg, Paul Haggis's follow-up to Crash as well. So we've got a lot to get to here, so let's not waste any more time and just dive on into it. And let's talk about that first movie there, the biggest new release of the weekend, which is Jodie Foster starring as the Brave One.
What are you wearing?
Green scrubs tied to the waist. Very sexy V-neck.
Man, don't you know there's a leash law?
We were gone for 3 weeks. We had to let him go.
I want to see him again.
He's gone.
I want to see him again.
He's gone, honey. I never understood how people lived with fear. And then it touched me.
We got the best detectives in the city working on this, and we will find them.
Please be a little bit patient and have a seat over there. An officer will be down shortly to help you.
We're on your side.
How come it doesn't feel like that? When you love something, every time a bit of it goes, you lose a piece of yourself.
This is so easy, man.
I mean, you can't look at that situation and not think something is up here. I mean, I know those guys are not that smart, and they think it can just get by, being gangsters and all that type of stuff, but you gotta be smarter than that, dude. In fact, there's so many times in this movie where people just need to be smarter than they actually are. Even the people that you feel for, like Naveen Andrews, like, you should know better than to throw that ball into this deep, dark tunnel. That's like going in the middle of a bad alleyway in downtown. I mean, that's something that you should have thought of. You should have thought first of here. But this is The Brave One. This is Jodie Foster starring as a New York City radio host whose fiance, played by Naveen Andrews from Lost, is beaten to death by criminals. Terrified for her safety, she buys a pistol and undergoes a personality transformation, becoming a vigilante. You have a detective played by Terrence Howard who investigates the vigilante shootings, which leads him closer and closer to Bane. And of course, she's cleaning up the streets her own way. And yeah, if I'm going to compare which movie that's based on Death Wish is the better film, this is definitely the better film. But like I said, it definitely has a lot of flaws to it, specifically with the characters and just the fact that they just do stupid stuff for the sake of doing stupid stuff. Even the people you want to get behind, like, they do incredibly stupid things in this movie that make no sense whatsoever. But, yeah, but at the same time, kind of like what Death Sentence didn't do, it works because you have a really good actress in Jodie Foster, who usually will never put in a really bad performance, even in a bad movie. Like, she'll give it her all. She'll give 110%, and she definitely really does deliver a strong performance in this movie. And you do want to get behind her because of all the stuff that's been going on in this movie. But at the same time, like, as I said before, it's the fact that everybody in this movie does something really, really stupid, and it's just kind of like, you should know better than this. Even if the movie is trying to make you think like, these guys are not that smart, they've got to be at least somewhat smart to know that this weird situation where you have this one woman in the middle of a subway by herself, there's nothing fishy about this at all. Like, I mean, I don't know. That's just my personal feeling on it per se, and I don't go into we don't have any subways that I usually go into around here. There is one in downtown Pittsburgh, but I don't usually take that anywhere. But you can usually take the subway to get to the Acrisure Stadium and the live casino if you want to. But yeah, I've never been on a subway before, so I wouldn't know by personal experiences. But But other than that, though, yeah, there's a lot of things that's wrong with the movie. Overall, I did like it, but at the same time, there are those moments where people are doing way too stupid things for the sake of it, for the sake of the script. This is directed by Neil Jordan, and Neil Jordan's made a lot of really good movies. The Crying Game, of course, and this was a film where, as much as I want to give it more credit, it's those moments where people are acting way too stupid for their own good that really kind of pushes me back from saying that you should definitely check this movie out. But, I mean, overall, I think it's fine. If you want to see a really good Jodie Foster performance where she plays kind of a Charlie Bronson type of character here, I think this definitely is fine for what it is. If you watch it one time, I think it's fine for what it is. But if on multiple screenings of it, yeah, I wouldn't go for multiple screenings of it per se, so that's a great one. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie here, and that is Mr. Woodcock.
The number one comedy in America has one name. Woodcock? Woodcock. Pollo madera. This weekend.
You actually think you're tougher than me?
Anytime, any place. Feel the love. Can't take this anymore. And take a laugh.
Take a lap, take a lap. Captain Montana, Watson.
Helena?
Who cares? Take a lap.
To see Mr. Woodcock. Rated PG-13. Now playing only in theater.
Honestly, I think this is actually the first movie that I've talked about on this particular show that has a trailer that literally is like the number one comedy in America, but yeah, this thing wasn't that big of a hit. It made only about, $9 million on its opening weekend, but yeah, that's not something to be very proud of, as to be like, this is the number one comedy in America on a weekend when your other comedy choices were The Brother Solomon, Daddy Day Camp, and Bratz. Yeah, I think that's not really a whole lot to really be that proud of, but you have Sean William Scott, who plays John Farley, who has, his youth was very frustrating, even trauma. Like many of his school kids in his Nebraska small-town home, was the constant abuse and humiliation in sadistic Jasper Woodcock's gym class, the Woodcock being played by Billy Bob Thornton. After college, doting son John becomes a motivational best-selling author and returns during a book signing tour to receive the backwater's highest honor. To John's horror, his devoted mother, Beverly, played by Susan Sarandon, announces her plans to marry the hated coach, and he's to be celebrated on the same event as John. Only ridiculous fatso Niederman and a strange brother try to help Farley stop Woodcock, but that keeps backfiring. This is a movie that is so terrible that everybody involved with it has said that they dislike working on the film. William Scott has said that, Billy Bob Thornton, even the director, which is Craig Gillespie, who, I couldn't believe it, but this was actually his first film as a director, and this was also a film where, this was a year where he had 2 movies come out, and then after this, he's been putting out just bullseyes after that. I mean, he did Lawrence and the Real Girl, which we'll get to in a couple months' time, Fright Night, which is a pretty damn good remake of the 85 movie, $1 Million Arm, which is a pretty good Disney sports drama with John Hamm at the forefront of that. The Finest Hours, which I think is a really good period film. I, Tonya, great movie with Margot Robbie. Cruella, probably one of the better Disney live-action remakes. And he just did recently Dumb Money, which I thought was a very good movie that a lot of people didn't get to see. And he's currently working on Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow for Warner Brothers. And it's hard to believe that this is the first movie he did as a director, and it's this film, like a film that he and William Scott and Billy Bob Thornton all said, yeah, we're not proud of this movie per se. And it's just gotten to the point where, you look at Billy Bob Thornton in this movie, and it's just another one of those movies where he's just regurgitating the bad Santa role. This was that time when he was playing that character multiple times, but there were times when he played it very well, like as Buttermaker in the Bad News Bears remake. That was good. This is a movie that is literally existing on the fact that this guy was, bad Santa. We got to make a movie where he's the forefront of it. And, Stifler from American Pie, he's the good guy now. And, you've got all this talent here. I mean, Ethan Suplee is in here from My Name is Earl. Amy Poehler, in one of her first movie roles. Melissa Leo. Melissa Sage Miller. Tyra Banks appears in the movie, too. All people that have done so much better than this, and it's good. It's a movie that got so bad they had to bring in the director of Wedding Crashers to finish the film, and he was uncredited for the rest of the movie. And it's just kind of like you should know right there that if they have to bring in a director of a much more successful movie that actually worked to save the film, you're in a real bad situation in general here. And Excuse me. And yeah, they were talking about, Sean William Scott and Billy Bob Thornton were actually talking about how they thought this movie was going to end their careers. Like Sean William Scott was saying that on the Opie and Anthony show back in 2009. There's a quote here that says, "There's nothing worse than going to a movie set knowing that the film could end my career." And I mean, that should tell you everything you need to know. But because Sean William Scott has been good in a lot of stuff. I mean, he did star in a comedy that's very similar to Bad Santa that went straight to DVD. I think it was Balls Out, Gary the Tennis Coach, which is actually a really funny movie. And I've seen him on Lethal Weapon. He's pretty good on that. He's just on Shifting Gears right now on ABC, which is actually a pretty good show overall. If you grew up with stuff from Tim Allen, like Last Man Standing and Home Improvement, of course. But as far as this movie goes, this movie is just a cluttered mess all across the board. Wasting a lot of really good talent here on stupid comedy that's not clever whatsoever. Characters who are basically typecast as characters that made them popular in the first place. I mean, this is a film that is just so bad and badly put together. There is no reason to gloat about the fact that this was the #1 comedy in America, because because this is basically saying that this is what America thinks good comedy is, and no, it's not. But so that's a movie that's supposed to be funny that's not funny. Here's a movie that's not supposed to be funny but is unintentionally funny, and that is Dragon Wars.
Prophecy speaks of the dragon's return. One good, one evil. This Friday, our world will be their battlefield. And our only hope.
I need to know exactly what we're up against.
Is to end
I'm engaged, stand by.
their battle.
Oh my God! We're going down!
Dragon Wars, rated PG-13, starts Friday.
See what I mean when I said this is an unintentionally funny movie? Because, good lord, those effects look absolutely terrible. I couldn't believe that they tried to push this so hard back in the day. Like, you know, back online when you were going to these different websites and you would see these ads for this movie, I thought it was a joke, and I think a lot of people thought it was a joke, but no. They actually thought they had something that was so important that they had to release this wide like this. This was actually the first Korean production in nearly 3 decades to receive a wide theatrical release in the US. This film? Really? Anyway, this is Dragon Wars, and it's based off the Korean legend, unknown creatures will return and devastate the planet. Reporter Ethan Kendrick, played by Jason Behr, which that should tell you everything you need to know if he's the biggest star in your movie, is called to investigate the matter. Excuse me, I had a cough there for a second. I didn't record it, but is called in to investigate the matter, and he arrives at the conclusion that a girl stricken with a mysterious illness named Sarah is supposed to help him. The emoji makes its way to Los Angeles, wreaking havoc and destruction, with the entire city under arms. Will Ethan and Sarah make it in time to save the people of Los Angeles? Oh, the people that you physically put in there to replace the Korean actors from the original film. I'm not even kidding you. This film was a film that was, you know, it was originally a Korean release, but they decided to take all the Korean actors and replace them with these actors that you may not be familiar with overall, but they were mostly comedic actors at the time. I mean, you have Craig Robinson, who was then of The Office. You have Billy Gardell, a few years before he did Mike and Molly. Retta, pre-Parks and Recreation, is in this movie. And you also have Robert Forster, Elizabeth Pena, Amy Garcia, so Derek Mears. You know, a lot of names that you can recognize right away if you look at the names and see the stuff they've been involved with. Of course, Derek Mears is Jason Voorhees in the 2009 Friday the 13th movie. Amy Garcia has been in a lot of stuff. She was on I think she was on George Lopez. You know, Robert Forster was in Jackie Brown. He's great in that movie. Everybody in this movie is just, like, they're just not interested in what's going on whatsoever. And it doesn't help that the CG effects in here look absolutely terrible. Like, these effects look abysmally bad. Like, this is one of the worst looking movies I have ever seen in my life, and it's hard to believe that this won the same award that The Host won. And The Host was a great movie that we talked about last year from the director of Parasite, Bong Joon-ho, and yet the same award went to this garbage here. And I've never seen the Korean version, so who knows? So maybe the Korean version is much better, but I've seen the butchered up American version, and yeah, if that's what the Korean version is, then we have to seriously talk about what the hell these people in Korea are thinking of or smoking, because this film was a train wreck of a movie. The monsters weren't scary, the visuals were terrible, the acting is awful. The writing is terrible. Nothing makes sense whatsoever. This is a terrible movie. This is an absolutely abysmal film that you should avoid like the plague because it is that bad of a movie. It is so terrible. Please avoid this movie. Dragon Wars, or D-War if they call it, whatever it is, just avoid it like the plague. Like, I would even say go watch Mr. Woodcock. At least watch something that's supposed to be funny. But then again, you should watch this movie for just how unintentionally funny it is, because it's not even on a so bad it's good type of level, but it's just so bad it's just kind of like, yeah, this is just a terrible movie. Avoid it like the plague. And yeah, I can't believe they thought this was going to be a big hit. But let's get to some movies a movie that actually has really good visual effects. It actually has a really good, is probably one of the best underrated musicals you may have never seen before. It's Julie Taymor's movie, Across the Universe.
Is there anybody going to listen to my story? All about the girl who came to stay. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Remember to let her into your heart.
Music's the only thing that makes sense anymore, man.
You can start.
Play loud enough. Keeps the demons at bay.
Better, 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 better. Nothing's gonna change my world. Nothing's gonna change my world.
So, I mean, if you haven't gotten the idea yet, Across the Universe is basically an original musical that uses the Beatles music as part of the story around it. And it's a fictional love story set in the 1960s amid the turbulent years of anti-war protest, the struggle for free speech and civil rights, mind exploration, and rock and roll, which many of those issues are still very much topical today, 60 years later. But at once gritty, whimsical, and highly theatrical, the story moves from high schools and universities in Massachusetts, Princeton, and Ohio, to the Lower East Side of Manhattan, the Detroit riots, Vietnam, and the dockyards of Liverpool. A combination of live action and animation, the film is paired with many songs by the Beatles that defined the time. And, yeah, it's hard to believe that this was a time that they were really pushing Jim Sturgis to be the next big thing. I mean, he had a couple movies around this time, and the guy was actually a pretty good actor, and I don't know what he's been done lately. I'm trying to think of what he did most recently that I might be familiar with. I mean, not really much that I see here. I think the most notable movie I see him in from his recent years was, of all things, Geostorm, that terrible Gerard Butler movie done by not directed by Roland Emmerich, but produced by him. But yeah, there was a time when they were really setting this guy up to be the next big thing, and it wasn't for lack of him not being that good of an actor. They just really he was in some good stuff, and then all of a sudden he just kind of disappeared out of the blue. Of course, Evan Rachel Wood's been around for a long time. You also have cameos by people like Bono, Eddie Izzard, Joe Cocker. You got Selma Hayek as playing all these various nurses. And the film is really, really damn good. I mean, I really like this movie a lot. And it's a film that was unfortunately a box office bomb, and might have been a little bit ahead of its time, quite honestly, because it didn't even make half of its budget back at the box office, and it kind of just disappeared. And it was not a well-received movie either. It was mostly a mixed bag film for most critics, but I thought it was pretty good right from the get-go. I thought everybody did a great job with the songs overall here. You know, the singing was actually pretty good. I mean, right from the get-go, you know, you hear Jim Sturgis talking about singing this one of the early songs in the movie. What was the name of the song? Girl. And then following that, you have Emma Rachel Wood singing Hold Me Tight, and then they're singing All My Lovin' and like I Want to Hold Your Hand, all these Beatles songs, and it works. It works on a number of different levels. Everything about the movie, I think, works really well. It's a very creative-looking movie. It's a visually pleasing-looking movie. The music overall is really good. I like the ideas of it. I like the way that they're bringing in this commentary for the time period. That is still very relatable, even by today's standards. If you just change a couple things, it's pretty much the same thing in this day and age. It's a movie that really does not get the proper attention I think it deserves. It's a really entertaining film. It's a very creative, visually pleasing film to look at. it's a really damn good movie, man. It's one I definitely highly recommend checking out. It's a film that I really enjoyed back in the day, and I just like it more and more every time I see it. I'm almost one of the few people that really defended it from the beginning, but now I stand behind it completely. It's a great movie that definitely deserves to be seen across the universe. Definitely check that movie out. I highly recommend it. It is definitely well worth a watch. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, and that is David Cronenberg's latest film with Viggo Mortensen reuniting for the first time since A History of Violence. We have Eastern Promises.
You want to go for a drink?
Everything's closed.
If things are closed, you just open them up.
He was a dangerous man with a hidden life.
I'm just a diver. I go left, I go right, I go straight ahead.
That she couldn't resist.
I need to know who you are.
But now,
How can you keep doing what you're doing?
he'll be forced to choose between her
You don't look at her anymore.
and his loyalty to a criminal empire.
This is bad for us.
From David Cronenberg, the acclaimed director of A History of Violence, Eastern Promises, rated R. Select cities September 14th, everywhere September 21st.
So in Eastern Promises, you have the story of Anna, played by Naomi Watts, who's a Russian-British midwife who delivers the baby of a drug-addicted 14-year-old trafficked Ukrainian girl who dies in childbirth. And after Anna learns that the teen was forced into prostitution by the Russian mafia in London, the leader of the Russian gangsters, played by Armin Mueller-Stahl, threatens the baby's life, and Anna is warned off by his menacing henchman, Viggo Mortensen. So, kind of like how we had two movies similar to Death Wish, we have two movies that are pretty much alike in the last 2 weeks with this and Shoot 'Em Up, except Shoot 'Em Up was supposed to be funny, I guess, and then this is supposed to be very serious, but this is David Cronenberg's latest film, the first film with him and Viggo Mortensen since History of Violence, and it's a really good movie. It's a really engaging movie that, tackles the subject matters of, sex trafficking and, shows off the Russian mafia and all that stuff, and has some really, really cool action sequences in this movie. There's a great scene where Viggo Mortensen is going after these guys in a sauna, completely naked, and it's just one of the most insane bits of action you'll ever see. And it's intense. It's the most intense action sequence you've seen in a long, long time. And it's an engaging movie. Mortensen, I think, works very well here. Vincent Cassel is also in the movie, too. He's really good. Naomi Watts is really good here. It's not afraid to go dark when it needs to. It's an intense film. It's a really engaging film. And it shows what the best of David Cronenberg can really be, when he's not being completely pretentious like his most recent works have been. But, yeah, this is a really entertaining film, a really good film that I highly recommend checking out. A really good film. If you like A History of Violence, you're definitely going to love Eastern Promises. It's a really intense film. It's not afraid to take chances, and it seals the deal on every single front. So I highly recommend Eastern Promises. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last movie that we have here, and that's Paul Haggis's follow-up to Crash, that is In the Valley of Elah.
Your son's in Iraq. Your son was in Iraq.
Experience the movie Roger Ebert gives 4 stars. A masterful film. It's powerful and incredibly gripping. From the director of Academy Award-winning Crash, In the Valley of Elah. Rated R. Now playing.
I'm sorry, In the Valley of Elah. Ella. It's pretty much the same. It's pretty much spelled the same way. But in this movie, you have Tommy Lee Jones, Charlize Theron, and Susan Sarandon, her second movie of the weekend. And in this film, it's based off of the actual events of this article that was based off of Mark Boal's Death and Dishonor. Mark Boal, of course, would later go on to write the script for The Hurt Locker, which is a really good film. It was an article about the murder case published in Playboy magazine in 2004, and it portrays a military father's search for his son, and after his body is found, subsequently hunts for the son's killers. It explores the themes including the Iraq War, abuse of prisoners, and PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And, not quite as good as Crash is, even though I'm one of the few people that actually did really like Crash. I will say that, I've said it before that I think Brokeback Mountain probably should have won Best Picture that year over Crash, but I thought Crash was a pretty good movie overall, and this is definitely not as good as Crash, but it's still a decent film overall. It shows that Tommy Lee Jones can still be a really good actor. You got really good talents with Charlize Theron and Susan Sarandon. Frances Fisher is in here too. It's a very entertaining film. It's a really engaging storyline that you really do get behind. It's not afraid to go dark, kind of like with Eastern Promises. Not afraid to go dark when it needs to, and I think it's a very well-made film. Like I said, not as good as Paul Haggis's Crash overall, but I liked it. I thought it was okay, so that's my thoughts on In the Valley of Elah, just to be quick on that one. And so, with all of that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and the next time we meet, we've got 6 more movies to look at, including of it. I'm just looking at right now, not a very good weekend for movies. There's 6 of them, but most of them are not very good. Of course, we have the sequel that everyone's been asking for, not Resident Evil Extinction, with Mila Jovovich once again back in the role of Jill Valentine. This year's Dane Cook comedy with Jessica Alba, Good Luck Chuck, Amanda Bynes in the high school. Is it a high school or a college comedy? I don't remember. Sydney White, which is basically a modern version of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Instead of the dwarves, it's actually just these 7 nerdy guys. But we'll delve into that one as we go to that one. And then we actually get to the good stuff. Sean Penn is latest film, Into the Wild. We have the Jane Austen Book Club. And Brad Pitt in another really good Western that came out around this time, The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. So we'll take a look at those 6 movies. That'll be coming up on tomorrow's show. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please go ahead and hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe button, notification, and the bell button, because you get updates on when new videos come out, and we do post here every day. Now, with all that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.